Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me as always, Philadelphia's number one hockey beat reporter. It is Charlie O'Connor. Chuck, obviously we have to talk a little Sixers.
They survived somehow. Maybe the fates of the Sixers and the Maple Leafs are tied together. Maybe they are actually the same team. Because the fact that they both, against all odds, staved off elimination for at least a couple more days, maybe they are the same team.
I will, you know how all Flyers season we would point to, that's different. What they did tonight, it's different than what they've done in the past. Now, the Sixers could ultimately piss all over themselves, and it would be the most Sixers thing in the world.
They probably will.
Most Sixers thing in the world to come back home and do it in front of, well, at least some of your fans. But I will say, winning that game last night felt a little different. You could have just rolled over and died, and you didn't. That's cool.
Yeah. This year was a little bit different for the Flyers, where they did have the 8-game losing streak, but they didn't turn that into an 11-game losing streak to end the season, which it sure seemed like that was on the table for a while. And yeah, maybe the Sixers, primarily because they have Tyrese Maxey, who apparently does actually step up in big games. Maybe they are a little bit different.
That's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Anyway, we're gonna get to some hockey now. It is report card day. We're going to be grading the Flyers forwards in a little bit. Charlie on allphly.com this morning put out his grades for the forwards. And the only way you can read it with the detailed breakdown is to become a diehard. But we're going to kind of break it down, see if I agree with your grades. We're going to see how harshly or how easily you graded some of these guys.
Yeah, I wanted to give Bill the opportunity to be too high, too low. See what Bill thinks about all the forwards, and then tomorrow I'll be going through the defenseman and the goalie.
The goalie. There is, in fact, one. But we're going to start today with mailbag question of the day because Michkov Mania is running wild, folks.
It is.
It is. I know maybe it's just because we're grasping. We just want it to be real, so we're going to make it real. But we're going to do some speculating today.
Why not?
And
it's Michkov,
listen, man, it's fun. It's what the entire thing is about.
Yeah.
They could get some other guys, maybe Oliver Bonk is awesome. Shit like that could all happen. But right now, we're looking at this thing, and it's Michkov. He's the guy.
Imagine how, and don't get me wrong, big Ryan Leonard fan. Love that player. I think he's going to be really, really good for the Capitals. He was my number 2 choice if Michkov wasn't there. But imagine the feeling in the fan base if Matvei Michkov was not drafted by the Flyers last summer. I feel look, there's still a lot of hopelessness among Flyers fans. There probably will be until they actually do prove that they are a true contender. Kind of the same way there was a lot of hopelessness in the Phillies fan base up until the moment when they finally won a playoff series and then won a second playoff series. And then it was oh crap, we need to get on board. And now everybody loves the Phillies. The Flyers need to prove to a lot of their fans that they are back. And until they actually do that tangibly with playoff success and a roster that actually looks like it could be a contender, a lot of fans aren't going to fully get on the bandwagon. But I do think that if Michkov wasn't here, and by here I mean just nebulously in the organization in theory.
He's this thing we have to look forward to.
Yes, that the hopelessness factor would be so much higher. And I think Ryan Leonard, who I very well believe could have been the pick they would have taken had Michkov not been there, great prospect. I think he's going to be a darn good player. but it would just be a different feel if he was the guy they were waiting for and not this potential Russian superstar.
And it's like, that article that comes out yesterday, and it wasn't the Russian one. It was like one of the main articles that came out, like with the quoting Alex Appleyard's tweet, like it's embedded and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, generally the lead is, generally regarded as the second most skilled player in last year's draft. Like, oh, right. Yeah. Connor Bedard, the generational talent. Like, this guy might be closer to him than he was 3. Like if all things were
Fantilli and Carlson pretty darn good.
Very well. I'm just like the fact that he's kind of in that group and the Flyers may have fallen ass backwards into him because of the crazy situation. It's like, yeah, well, we're in perfect position to take this guy.
I mean, I can tell you he was my number 2.
Yeah.
Like Bedard was 1, Michkov was 2, Fantilli was 3, Carlson was 4, and that wasn't because I thought the Flyers were going to get Michkov. That's because I thought Michkov was the second best player in the draft.
Yeah. And he's also like, we don't get to, we see the clips and stuff, and some people, are watching his games at 10 in the morning or whatever they are. But he's this like teenage foreign entity that we can't really like grasp.
Yeah.
So like the enigmatic effect makes it so much more exciting.
He's more of a concept than a person at this point.
It could be anything. It's just concept of superstar. We don't even really fully know what it is. And I think that adds to a lot of the excitement. But with the report that came out yesterday that we might be seeing, it's a possibility. The possibility exists.
The door has been opened a crack.
Yes, Matvei Michkov could
Maybe more than a crack.
Could arrive in Philadelphia as soon as this coming season. Like, he'd be here this summer for training camp. Well, there's a lot of excitement.
Man, can you imagine? Not even training camp, because in the report it says that a decision would be made by the end of June.
End of June.
Can you imagine how packed development camp would be in Voorhees in July?
Oh, it's like there's going to be
like you wouldn't be able to get in.
No, there's going to be like cops directing traffic in Voorhees because there's a goddamn 200-car pileup trying to get into the whatever it's called, not the skate zone anymore. Flyers Training Center.
Yes.
But we start with the mailbag question of the day. It's John Bannon Jr., and I think this is interesting. We touched on it a little bit yesterday. If Michkov does arrive this summer, and that's a big if, would that change Flyers' strategy on whether they try to sign a big-time free agent or go after a second-tier free agent, or no, nothing changes, kind of just stay the course? All right, so for the sake of this conversation, and John acknowledges it in his question.
Big if.
Right. Like, who the hell knows? Again, it's Russia. Literally anything could happen. Anything. There's nothing off the table. But for the sake of this conversation, it's June 30th, not May 1st, and we just found out he's coming. Free agency starts tomorrow. Does this change the plan?
The one way I would say, at least for me, that it changes the plan a little bit is that I think it makes it more important to get a center somehow. Because I don't think you can go into Michkov's. I mean, you can. I guess you could do whatever you want. I wouldn't want to go into Michkov's first year in Philadelphia crossing your fingers that first half Sean Couturier is going to come back. I guess you could put Michkov with Morgan Frost, and maybe Morgan Frost gets this massive boost and becomes a point-per-game guy next to Michkov. That would be cool. But to me, it would increase the urgency to find some way to get a center. Now, granted, the center pool isn't the best. This really isn't the best free agent class beyond, I mean, the two big names are Sam Reinhart and Steven Stamkos. Now, it seemed like Tampa in their exit interviews today and just the reports that have come out over the last couple of days, it does seem like Tampa is pushing the narrative that they think they will be able to keep Steven Stamkos. We'll see how it plays out. They don't have a ton of cap space. Who knows? But it's at least possible that Stamkos will be available. It certainly does seem like Sam Reinhart will be available because I have no idea how Florida fits him. But again, stranger things have happened. Maybe they trade somebody. Who knows? Beyond those two guys, though, like it's just, I like Jake Gensel as a player. I don't think the news that Michkov is coming here would have me be like, yeah, throw 8x8 at Jake Gensel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's still, and we talked about this a little earlier before the show.
Or 7x8.
The idea when they drafted him, it was, okay, 3 years from now, we're going to have him on an ELC.
Right.
we're talking about a 21, 22-year-old kid. That's kind of the new, like, entering your prime age. It's no longer like, 24, 25. Like, no, you're early 20s. You're entering your prime, at least. That's a huge competitive advantage to have maybe a superstar, a guy who's ascended to that point.
Yes.
Like Kaprizov when he came over in 24, 25 years old.
Yeah, he was
and
more
he was even older.
Yeah.
That's a huge competitive advantage. You then, because of that, if we go out and overpay a free agent or something, it ain't that big a deal. We can do it.
Yeah.
We related it to having the rookie quarterback.
Right.
Like, hey man, when you're not paying the most important position, you can pay some other dudes.
Yep.
And that really makes your team good, even if it's a little bit of an overpay, you know? With him being a teenager, 20, does that kind of change how, because we've always, when Michkov gets here, we fucking hit the ground running. It's time to go. If he comes over early, is it still that feeling?
I think it does change the equation a little bit, because when we were viewing Michkov as having the 3-year timeline, we were assuming that he would, when he got over here, would be close to a finished product. He could still get better. Guys get better from 22 to 25, 26 all the time. But if he was already a very successful KHL player with 3-4 years of KHL experience under his belt, one of the better KHL scorers, which I think he would be if he stays in the KHL for another 2 seasons, then you're thinking he comes over and he's immediately a 70-point guy right off the bat, maybe more. If he were to come over next season, I would still expect Michkov to be a good NHL player right off the bat. Like, I am not thinking he's going to come over here and score 10 goals.
I would think he'd be productive.
Yeah, but it's important for people to realize that, he is still developing, that he wouldn't come over at age 20. Connor Bedard had a good rookie year. He was probably going to win the Calder. He was not he's not what he's going to be.
Yeah.
And if Michkov comes over and plays next season for the Philadelphia Flyers, I do not think what he is at age 20 in his draft plus 2 season is what he will ultimately become. So I do agree that it's a different situation in terms of urgency, because I don't think it's Michkov's here, we need to go out and get everyone, because now Michkov isn't doing his developing in the KHL.
Yeah.
He's doing his developing here. And this year and next year would be developmental years for Michkov, where you still expect he's going to be a pretty darn good player, but he's still working on the finer points of his overall play and filling out his game and getting bigger, getting stronger, things like that. I don't think it's the same situation as if he comes over 2-3 years down the road and you're thinking, okay, he is close to what he's going to be and he's going to come over as close to fully formed as you can expect on an entry-level deal. Let's go out and get a $10 million a year guy to support him. I don't think it's quite the same situation. I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm and free agency, granted, you're always going to overpay guys in the way the NHL system works, like most sports. You don't hit free agency till at least 27 usually.
Yeah.
You're on the back end a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at free agents and it's if it's early, now we're talking about, it's not a 27, 28, 29-year-old guy. You're signing him for maybe 2-3 years from now. And it's how does that make sense?
Yeah.
When this guy's 30, 32 is when we're actually going to be competing. Did this signing help us at all? I'm looking at this list and there's so few. If they signed Steven Stamkos, I would be happy.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun. I
That'd
don't
be really
care.
Fun. Especially on a short-term deal.
Yeah.
I'm as I said yesterday, if you can get Steven Stamkos to agree to a 2-year contract, go for it. I love that. But I just don't think you could.
I'm looking at this list, and maybe it's just my bias of being a huge fan of this player. The only one that even makes remote sense to me is Shane Gostisbehere. And that only makes so much sense because they have a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them are any good.
Yeah, he would be blocking, in theory, a guy like Emil Andre or something from giving. But Gostisbehere is a legitimately good power play quarterback. Their power play is historically awful. You could very easily talk yourself into it.
But as much as I think that would be fun and I want that guy, you know what we need more than that? Jamie Drysdale to turn into him.
Yeah.
It's maybe more, while I would like the power play to be better, I want making it better with him doesn't really solve a long-term problem.
Yeah. One guy who, and I really haven't been following this closely, because they're still in the playoffs. They're obviously a cup contender. I don't know if they have designs on re-signing him and they just haven't agreed to it. Given the weakness the Flyers have on the left side, Teuvo Teravainen's interesting to me.
That was interesting.
He's an interesting guy to me, especially if you have Michkov, because the intriguing part about Teravainen to me is that he is not just a legitimate offensive weapon. He's like a legitimately good defensive winger too. And I wouldn't hate if you can't get Michkov a clear-cut 1C right off the bat, I don't hate the idea of having one of his wingers be able to support him defensively. So that would be interesting. I'd be more interested in Teravainen if he hits the market, even though he's 29, he's a little on the older side. I'd be more interested in Teravainen if he hits the market if Michkov comes over next year than I would be if Michkov doesn't. I'll put it that way.
It was yesterday or Monday, one of them. We talked about looking at the Toronto situation, and that might be different now. They win last night, maybe building some momentum. We'll see. But there's a good chance they shake up that core. And we focused on Mitch Marner mostly because it just seems like he'd be the odd man out. And, Nylander signed long-term. Matthews ain't going nowhere if they have any brains,
Exactly.
Like if they're not just stupid as hell.
Yeah.
Something that never really occurred to me, and this might not be the smartest thing.
Okay.
1 year left of John Tavares. Just to have almost not to compare the two, but like a Yager-ish veteran for Michkov. Like I realized
I wouldn't hate it.
I realized Tavares
I really wouldn't hate it.
Is 33. He's not the player he once was.
Still pretty good.
But that's last year he had 36 goals and 80 points. He had 29 goals this year. He played almost 18 minutes a game. He's 60% in the faceoff dot the last 3 years, basically. Like, you could do worse. I'm not saying this is a long-term solution. No. I'm not saying at the price point you're acquiring him at, it's the best idea, but for 1 year and then see where you are, to have that veteran center presence, just someone steady that you can at least count on for something. It's not crazy,
Bill,
to me.
It's an interesting idea, and I don't hate it. What I will say is that he does have the no move clause. He obviously signed in Toronto because he's from Toronto, grew up a Maple Leafs fan. Would he waive it at all? I don't know. Would he waive it to come play for John Tortorella? I really don't know. But I like where your head's at because, look, this
is all based on them going to him and being like, we're shaking this thing up. Like, and maybe he just goes, nah, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I want to spend as long as I can playing in Toronto. Look, he's not an $11 million a year player, but if you're trading for him, you're basically getting a 1 year, $11 million a year contract for the Flyers and their timeline. And given the weakness they have down the middle, I would not have any issue with that move in terms of how it works with the rebuild. It would boost the power play, I think, in the short term. It definitely would boost their center depth. I'm just skeptical that John Tavares would waive his no move clause at all. And if he does, that he would waive it to come to Philly. But I like where your head's at,
I'm
Bill.
just trying to find, and not even, he's just a a well-known player on a team we just talked about in this situation.
You're thinking more the right way.
More of an archetype than even maybe the specific player. Like, okay, overpaid guy on a short-term deal who isn't worth the money he's making, but he doesn't stink.
The other potential complication there is, I know we kind of look at the Flyers cap situation as it doesn't matter because they're not trying to compete. They actually have a lot of cap obligations for next year. They have some weird
stuff going on.
They'll be under the cap. Don't get me wrong. This is not a situation where they are going to be in cap hell, but they just took on the Ryan Johansson contract. You've got Cal Peterson in limbo. Like, they have the Ryan Ellis deal. Yeah, you can put it on LTIR, but they would rather not. They have a lot of cap obligations.
And Tippett's going from 1.5 to 6.2.
Yeah. I'm not saying they couldn't figure out a way to do it. I'm just saying that it's not as easy as you might think for them to just fit $11 million on their cap.
Literally,
they would have to do some serious maneuvering.
There's only like 3 teams that could, we'll just take on $11 million.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There aren't even like that many cap floor teams anymore. But you also, you had an interesting idea, and I see that your super chats, we will get to your super chats. You had the interesting thought, like, looking at the list, it's like, what if these free? I don't know. What are these free agents? It's not. Even if we wanted them to go all in, like Michkov's here, let's fucking go for it, boys. You look at the list and go like, okay, so we have to make trades.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you had the interesting thought, there might be some free agents who aren't on this list yet.
Correct.
And you used the Matt Duchene example.
Yeah. Well, because Matt Duchene was a guy, I mean, in retrospect, very well might have been the best free agent signing of last summer. Dallas signs him to a 1-year, $3 million contract. He gets 25 goals and 65 points in 80 games, and now he's a key cog on a team with serious designs on winning the Stanley Cup. Great signing. He wasn't a free agent until June 30th when he was bought out. So those are the types of things where some guys will pop up late in June who you had no idea were going to be available because of surprise buyouts. Maybe there will be fewer this summer because the cap is actually going to go up.
That's fair. Yeah.
There still will be teams that will be crunched. And there will be teams that maybe have had conversations with Sam Reinhart and are like, well, he's interested. Maybe we should clear some cap space to try to fit him. And that could theoretically open up some guys to hit the free agent market that you don't even realize are going to be free agents. Just something to keep an eye on, given what happened last summer, where possibly the best free agent signing of the summer was a guy who 4 days before free agency, no one knew was going to be a free agent.
So that's the mailbag question of the day. Thank you very much to John Bannon Jr. for getting that conversation started. We will get to the Super Chats right after I tell you about my friends at Shady Rays. That's right. Summer's coming, and that means Shady Rays are back, baby. I told you about them all fall, and now that weather's heating up, you want to get them sunglasses on. You can get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. Now, look at that. Look at me. You know, I got the Rancid shirt. I got the Phil's hat. I want something red. I want something red maybe to go for the Phils this summer.
It does fit your
I bet
vibe.
you Shady Rays has something for me there.
I'm going to be going to my first tailgate, I believe, on Saturday, my first Phillies tailgate. I might be breaking out the Shady Rays, not going to lie.
I got to tell you, something I really, really appreciate about Shady Rays, as somebody with long hair, a lot of sunglasses, when they have the little nose pieces, you put them up on your head, you go inside the Wawa or something, it's stuck in your hair. It's a whole thing. You're tangled up.
Okay.
Shady Rays has tangle-free options. They even have aviators. I'm a big aviator guy. That's the style I typically go with. They even have 80 aviators that don't have the little thing. It's more of like a rounded sort of nose piece, so that you can put them up on your head. Doesn't get stuck in your hair. How convenient is that? And now, exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's code PHLY. Check out Shady Rays. Do it today. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. All right. Let's get to report card day.
Let's do Super Chats first.
Oh, yeah, Super Chats. I forgot about them already.
Super Chats. Yep. We got one from I Just Skate 13. Cool.
Says, hey,
nice.
Fellas, first time, long time. If the Flyers want to accelerate the rebuild, would it make sense to offer Sheet a Byfield or Perfetti this summer?
I mean, again, I'm going to say what I said to Bill. I like your thinking, I Just Skate 13. I generally will say be cautious about these kinds of ideas because offer sheets rarely happen. However, I like the players you're naming. Quentin Byfield, love that guy. I think he's already turning into a stud. I think he's going to be a stud. The fact that he's not playing center mostly for LA is mostly because they just have so many centers. I think he has 1C potential. Exactly the kind of guy who the Flyers should be trying to kick the tires on. And Cole Perfetti is an intriguing talent who I don't think Winnipeg appreciates as much as they should. So those are the kind of guys where, yeah, the Flyers should absolutely be kicking the tires on two guys who I think do have high-end potential. Maybe not like superstar potential, although I'm pretty high on Byfield, but definitely high-end potential. I will just say that remember with offer sheets, number one, they don't happen a lot. Number two,
Player has to sign them.
it takes two to tango. The player has to be interested in signing. And number three, GMs are cowards.
And four, cap's going up.
Cap is going up.
Teams might not like
price of the brick going up.
Yeah, price of the brick going up. It's the best. We had to get one in.
Yeah, we had to get one wire reference in.
So like usually offer sheets get matched.
Usually.
And now in this situation where all of a sudden, cap's actually going up for the first time in a few years, there's a little bit more leeway. You know, like teams, even if you're like, I don't know, well, like how much do you want to give this guy? That it has to be a contract that the other team doesn't want to match.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to screw yourself.
Perfetti's,
like, we gave him $10 million. Okay, congratulations. Yeah. That was dumb.
Perfetti's more interesting in that regard, to be honest, because like with Byfield, he's shown so much that it's hard for me to imagine there being an offer sheet you could sign him to that LA wouldn't match. Like maybe you could poison pill it, I guess. But like he was a top pick. I mean, he's a guy who they have a lot of their future pinned on. Perfetti's a guy where Winnipeg, as I said, doesn't seem to like him as much as they should. So he could be a guy where if you tossed him, $5 million or $6 million or something, maybe they say, we just don't think he's that great. He was having trouble even getting in the lineup every night. Sure, you can have him. Like I'm kind of thinking about the Konecny one, where it was like you didn't get the sense that Montreal was fully sold on him.
All right.
Yeah, like if you want him, sure. Like we're ticked off you did it, but also we're not sure what we have in him either. Whereas I think LA is very sure what they have in Quentin Byfield. Much harder to prime away with an offer sheet. Perfetti, maybe there's a little bit more of a possibility they might not immediately reflexively match it.
And just looking at the financial situation, the assumed financial situation of those two teams, one of them, the Kings, plays in the second biggest media market in the country. I bet you they have a ton of cash on hand. We heard from Winnipeg's owner this season.
Yeah.
Like, hey, unless you people start showing up, this might not be sustainable. Like that might be a situation, and granted, Nashville matched, but the Flyers tried. The Flyers thought, let's bully a small market. Yeah. They don't have this money, and one of their owners came up with it out of his pocket to match the signing bonus. Yeah. But like maybe that's something, whether it's a Perfetti offer sheet or start using your financial advantage because you're owned by fucking Comcast. Like that's one of those things. Yes, there's a cap. There's only so much you can do, but there are still these teams that don't have a ton of cash on hand.
You're not wrong.
Like, so you might be able to take advantage of that.
All right, let's go with our next one.
Other super chat.
Which I think was more just a nice thing to say. Mellerman appreciate all the coverage. Billy, Charlie, and Kelly have been providing all year. Keep up the great work.
We will.
Thank you, Mellerman. And also thank you for that little troll of Bill calling him Billy. Because I know he does not love that, but I love it. So thank you, Mellerman, for it.
If you want to pay us $5, you can call me anything you want. All right, let's get to Charlie's player grades. As I said at the top of the show, Charlie published his grades for the Flyers forwards today on allphly.com. The only way you can read the full breakdown is to go to allphly.com and become a diehard. That's right, premium content just like this. You said this comes in at around 3,000 words, Charlie?
Yeah, about 3,000.
I think that might be worth it right there.
Maybe.
But you not only get Charlie's stuff, you get everyone else too. Become a diehard for stuff like this. But today we are going to look at your player forward grades. And just going through the list, I think we generally agree. But I think there are some discrepancies to be had. So we'll start. I like how you ordered it too. You just put the guys in like a grade order.
Yeah.
And I very much appreciate no one got an A.
No, I don't think anybody deserved an A.
So we start with Travis Konecny.
There's actually, it's funny because the defensemen and the goalies will be out tomorrow. There is one player who received an A, and it's kind of funny.
Interesting.
I think you might be able to figure out why it's funny.
Right.
Because he may not have finished the season on the team.
I wasn't even thinking. Okay, so you're going to grade him.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, who? Why? No, so we start with Travis Konecny, generally regarded as the team's best player, certainly their best forward. TK ends up with 33 goals. He has the 68 points. He did miss some time with injury, but he was a force for them offensively for a lot of the year. I was critical down the stretch, like, dog, you got to be doing a little bit more, but as we were saying, as we were going over this before the show, forget like the grade you gave him for the season. It's a B+. That is his player evaluation.
He's a B+ player.
He's their best player,
right?
And that's who he is. This is why they have to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's why they're rebuilding. It makes sense. Like, oh, yeah, he didn't carry the team down the stretch. Well, no shit. He's not a team carrying guy.
Exactly.
That's not his job.
Yeah.
And that's,
I mean, it is, I guess, functionally, because who else is going to do it?
He's the only one capable for small bursts of time. But if you need that, it's like, yeah, it would be nice if he came through. Also, he was drafted in the 20s, not the top 5. Like, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's Travis Konecny's season. You give him a B+. I think that's fair. I think that's definitely the fair grade. Like, was I a little disappointed with what he did down the stretch? Yeah. That said, the season as a whole, I mean, first of all, very little. It was a better year, but like offensively, very little to cheer for on a nightly basis. Some guys had some good seasons and they were fun games and all, but TK was everything to this team offensively, pretty much. That's pretty good. Like, I don't have a problem with the season he had. If this is who he is as a player, as long as you find 2 or 3 guys much better than him, dope.
Yeah, my big thing and the reason why I ultimately settled on B+ for Konecny is because, number one, he needed to, coming into this year, he needed to prove that the previous year was not a fluke.
Yeah.
Because the last time he had a breakout season was 2019-2020, where you're like, oh man, Travis Konecny, he's a top of the lineup guy. And the next 2 years, he struggled. I wouldn't say he was terrible, but he certainly regressed. He took a big step back. And then he got back going 2 seasons ago, I guess last season. Are we calling this past season last season, or?
I've been like saying different phrases because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Like, Michkov is going to be here. I keep saying like in October rather than next season because it's like, well, the Flyers are kind of already on to next season. But
you're
like,
in that weird middle ground.
I don't know. You know.
But in any case, he had the re-breakout season in 2022, 2023. He needed to prove this past year, this just concluded season, that year before wasn't a fluke. And not only did he replicate his scoring, so he showed that no, this isn't just another, peak year that he's never going to replicate. He replicated the scoring. In addition, his two-way play got better. Now, he's never going to be a two-way force. He's not going to be Sean Couturier. He's not going to be Tyson Forster. He's not going to be Noah Cates. Like, it's just not who he is. But he needs to be decent. He needs to be not a liability where, yeah, he racks up all these points, but he gives it all back because he plays zero defense. Yeah. This year, he improved his two-way play. Basically, to give you some background on that percentile thing on the report card, Evolving Hockey, which is for my money the best and most comprehensive public advanced stat website, they have a model called RAPM, which is regularized adjusted plus minus, and basically what it does is it isolates all of the factors that contribute to play driving. So it accounts for quality of teammates. It accounts for quality of competition. It accounts for usage, zone starts, things like that. And what it does is it then boils a player's impact down to a number. Basically what it is does he make his teammates better at carrying play? Does he make his teammates worse? Travis Konecny this year graded out in the 50th percentile by that RAPM model in terms of driving expected goal differential. Is that amazing? No, it's not great, but it's not bad. He's right in the middle. Because if you can have a guy who is not hurting you from a differential standpoint, but then also is scoring a ton, so he's not necessarily helping you carry the play territorially, but you're not getting trapped in your own zone, and because he's such a good scorer, he does more in the offensive zone than the average guy would be doing with all that territorial play. To me, could Konecny get better? Yeah, he could. But he's gotten to the point where he's not a liability. And last year, for all of his scoring, he graded out very poorly by advanced metrics, by 5-on-5, even strength metrics. This year, he took a jump. And that, to me, shows that he's willing to work within the Tortorella system. Tortorella loves him. I'm sure Tortorella pushes him, and I'm sure Konecny gets frustrated at times. But Tortorella gives him a pretty long leash. He's earned Tortorella's trust, and Konecny he's seemingly improving his two-way play. The other reason why I gave him the B+, and maybe this is a little recency bias, but as frustrated as you and Kelly especially were with his play during the 8-game losing streak, they don't get to game 82 if he doesn't put the team on his back in those games against the Rangers and the Devils in games 80 and 81. I mean, that was, maybe he didn't show up in those 8 games, but he was the best player on the ice in both the Rangers game and the Devils game, and he's the main reason why that wasn't an 11-game losing streak to end the
No, and maybe it's silly to put that kind of weight on like 2 games, but I think the team as a whole, we have a completely different feeling about them right now if they don't win those 2 games.
Yes.
Like it's just a different offseason, whether that's fair or not, and Konecny was the guy in those games. Before we get to your next B+, I want to tell you about Rite Aid. That's right. It's that time of year. Birds are chirping, grass is growing, hockey playoffs, they're here, man. And that means eyes are watering and throats are scratchy. Everyone out there who's been listening to this show regularly for the last few weeks and months knows I'm an allergy sufferer. You can hear it in my voice on plenty of days. Pollen from trees, grasses, and weeds are a primary cause of seasonal allergies. Symptoms flare when the pollen you're allergic to is in the air. It's possible to be allergic to just one or several types of pollen. Allergies suck, man, but there are steps you can take to help alleviate some of your allergy symptoms. First, sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. And if the pollen count's high, stay indoors. Keep your windows closed and run your air conditioners as needed. And when you come in from the outdoors, take off your shoes, maybe your coat near the door to minimize tracking in pollen. And take a shower before bedtime to help wash away pollen from your skin and hair. And of course, you can visit Rite Aid to stock up on over-the-counter allergy solutions like nasal rinse and antihistamines. Still not enough relief? Ask a Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication, like a decongestant, might be necessary. You can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season. Visit your local Rite Aid today, stock up on allergy relief, or catch up on immunizations for RSV, shingles, and more. Walk in or schedule a vaccine appointment at riteaid.com. All right. Our first disagreement.
Okay. I suspected you would disagree with this one because I went back and forth on whether this was too high. I ultimately went with the B+, but I thought that you would think this was a bit much.
Owen Tippett gets a B+, and I don't think it's crazy. I get why you did it. He had a good season. I'm hoping that this is his B+. That's, I guess, hopefully this is B+ for him. Mm-hmm. And there's another level.
Right.
He needs to get there for this. If he's going to be, it's fine. 28 goals. He's basically JVR production level right now.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But man, it would be really sweet if he was a 35 goal scorer. And I'm hoping he can get there. For me, I might go B- just because he was good, but he did not take a step, in my mind at least.
That's fair. I think he took some steps, but I understand why, there's the flaws in his game are still there. He's still wildly inconsistent. He's streaky. He goes through runs where he can take over games for a week and a half, and then he's relatively invisible for a week and a half. That's just him. Hopefully he loses that at some point. He may never. You never know. Also, he probably misses the net a little bit too much. Probably. That was especially a problem over the first maybe month, 2 months of the year. I thought he got better as the year went on, but that's certainly something he could improve on. There's just the fact that it just feels like he should be better. He's one of those guys where he always does leave you wanting more because you think with his skill set, he should be scoring 35. I do think, though, he took some steps forward this year. Number one, the 5-on-5 production was a bit better. He graded out as a mid-tier first liner. He was in the top 60 in terms of points per 60. That's a good sign. The play driving got a little bit better as well, but I think it's pretty rare when you have a guy who is a shooting goal scorer who also drives play. A lot of those guys are more like Mike Hoffman types where, yeah, they score goals, but they grade out in the 5th percentile in terms of play driving. 72nd percentile is pretty darn good for a guy who we largely think of as an offense-driven player. The big thing I liked, and I know some people will disagree because they have in their heads that he misses the net too much. I love the fact that he's shooting the puck more. And I think that is, it didn't necessarily show up in the goal stats this year because the shooting percentage was down, but he was first in the NHL among all forwards this season in shots on goal per 60 at 5-on-5. He was second in the NHL in shot attempts per 60 at 5-on-5. I think that sets a foundation for him where if he does start finishing better over the next couple years and he keeps shooting as much as he's shooting, suddenly you do have a 35 to 40 goal scorer. I love the fact that he's being more assertive in the offensive zone, taking shots. Now he just needs to get better at finishing on those shots, to be sure. But I didn't necessarily expect both of them to happen at once, and I think he took a big step forward this year in terms of creating his own shot for himself, which is absolutely a skill, and also being willing to demand the puck in the offensive zone, which I don't think necessarily comes naturally to him from a personality standpoint.
No, listen, 544 total shot attempts this past season, I suppose we'll call it.
Sure.
It's 130 more than the previous year.
Yeah.
But the shooting percentage went down 2%, 11.7 down to 9.7. I just need him, dog. Man, if you can get that to 12, 13, we're talking about a fucking star.
Exactly. Exactly. But, and I guess where I'm at is,
and when I look at,
you have to start shooting.
Yeah,
you have to both shoot more and be more efficient on your shots. I don't think he was shooting more by just shooting from the perimeter. I think he was creating good shots. He just needs to get better at finishing.
Yes.
But I do think this was a necessary step in his development. Now he's just got to hold it and also get better at finishing on the chances he gets.
And I think he just had a little more success one-on-one with the goalie this year, whether it's on the rush, breakaway, or whatever. Like, we saw him score in different ways a little bit, getting to the net as well. Like, that's going to continue to evolve for him, hopefully. But I just look at a dude, 6'1", 210, who can skate like that and shot like that. And there just ain't a reason in my mind you don't have 30 goals.
It's totally fair.
And listen, he also scores 28 goals and 23 at even strength.
Yeah, that's a really
he's
interesting
a goal scorer
point.
on a team that doesn't have a fucking power.
Yeah, like, I don't know if there's a player on the team who would benefit more from
a playmaking center.
Not even that. Yes. I was going to say a power play coach who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, probably.
Just saying.
All right, now we get to the Bs, just the straight Bs. Go to Morgan Frost. Kind of a ridiculous season for Morgan Frost. Got scratched, I think it was 11 times before January 7th. Then goes on a nice little run. Disappointing, again, like many of the players down the stretch, those final 8-10 games.
Obviously doesn't play at all in the second half of Game 82.
Play the final 30 minutes of the final game of the season, which is quite a decision. Okay.
He wasn't playing well, which was, but the thing is, and this is just classic Torts, is that given the amount of players that weren't playing well at the end of the season, I don't think we would have necessarily focused on it as much had Tortorella not benched him, because then it was like, oh yeah, he did go scoreless in his final 8 games because John Tortorella just had to draw attention to it by benching him for the second half of the final game of the year.
And that's like, I think B is fair. I might go B+ for Morgan Frost.
Okay.
Because I do believe, while like the raw totals might not be what they were last year, he had a few more points last season.
Yeah.
I think he took a step this year in terms of his assertiveness. I just think I didn't know what the hell he was at the end of last season, despite the good second half. He might only be this, but I bet he's at least this.
Yeah.
And you need a 40-point guy.
Yeah.
You need, even if he's just a 3C, if that's what he is, that's a pretty good point total for a 3C.
I think where I was at this time last year with Frost was I acknowledge that he had a good second half. I acknowledge that he is an NHL caliber player who might fit on another team. I was not at all convinced that he fit on this team. Now where I'm at with Morgan Frost is he can play on my team any day. Is he a super impact guy? I don't know. I mean, he might have another step. Maybe if there's ever a season where his coach doesn't jerk him around for the entire first 3 months of the year, maybe he does score 60 points. I don't know. But this version of Morgan Frost, a Morgan Frost who drives play, a Morgan Frost who is pretty good defensively, a Morgan Frost who actually can do something on the power play. Like, power play was bad. Morgan Frost did lead the team in power play points with 11. It's not great, but on this power play, it's really not bad, given the fact that everybody stunk on it, and he was the one guy who scored even a little bit. This version of Morgan Frost, yeah, he could be my third-line center, and then maybe if he continues to improve and takes another step, maybe he can be my second-line center. But he can be one of my middle six centers on a contending Flyers team any day. I was not at that point this time last year.
No, it was, I felt last year, all right, he put up some points. I also remember thinking like, yo, Owen Tippett killed it.
Yeah.
And Morgan Frost got some assists on his goals.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like, and this year, it was almost the other way around for a lot of times.
At times, yeah.
Like, at times this season, I was like, damn, Morgan Frost might be like, if these two are a duo, he might kind of be the leader of it.
Yeah,
he might be the one
it.
making the thing happen. It's quarter of, and we've done 3 guys. So for the interest of time, we're just going to start grouping the grades together. The remaining Bs are Ryan Poehling and Garnett Hathaway.
Both get Bs.
Both get Bs, and I think that's... I think I expected a little more offense from Hathaway, so I'm fine with a B.
Mm-hmm.
Poehling probably exceeded my expectations.
28 points in 77 games.
I just didn't know what the hell he was. I think he exceeded my expectation.
He definitely exceeded mine.
I might go B+ with him.
Okay.
I think B for Hathaway is fair, but both were, I think, solid additions to the bottom of this lineup.
I think Hathaway was exactly what I expected him to be. And that's great because I thought very highly of Garnett Hathaway. Hathaway was one of those guys where, I watched him from afar for a long time before he became a Flyer. And I just kind of was like, man, that'd be cool to have him on the team I cover, even though I never expected he was ever going to join the team I covered because it was like, why the hell would he come to the Flyers? Then he did.
Danny Briere said the same thing.
Yeah. And he was exactly what he's been everywhere else, which is not the greatest offensive player, but can chip in occasionally. A lot of fun to watch. A classic old school type of player that the Bullies fans are going to love, but also is really, really good by underlying advanced stats too. There aren't too many of those guys out there. Garnett Hathaway is one of them. I was very, very happy that Garnett Hathaway was on the Flyers this year. Ryan Poehling was the one where, dude didn't get qualified by the Penguins last year, and the Penguins have no depth. So you're like, all right, give it a go. He's 24 years old, former first round pick. Why not see what you have in him? Turns out he's pretty good. He's probably, he's a fourth liner on a really good team, but he can play on the third line. He's got the skill to play on the third line if you need him to. If he's in your top 6, like he was for stretches in March, that's bad. But if he's on your fourth line, awesome. If he's on your third line, okay.
No, I was very happy with what we got out of Ryan Poehling. Hathaway, I think, and like I said this at some point this season, I expected more offense from him. Even though you look at his career numbers, it's like, no, he did what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, this is about what he is. About 20 points.
I looked at his career splits, and he's scored more against the Flyers than anyone by like a lot. Really? So like, it's just... That's my point of reference.
Fair.
I see him kill us, and I'm like, oh, this guy must score like 12, 14 goals a year. And it's like, no, but he's on that pace against the Flyers. He's on pace for like 18 or 19 against the Flyers.
If Mika Zibanejad played the Flyers every game, he would be scoring Connor McDavid
break Ovechkin's record. We go to the B- now. Forster and Farabee, 2 of our F Around Friday stars.
Heyo.
Forster B-, Farabee B-.
They had such different seasons.
They did. And it's funny because if you reverse when their different like peaks and valleys happen, I'm reversing the grades I'm going to disagree with. Like Forster... I have a lot of trouble giving anything below a B2.
Okay.
Maybe a B+. And maybe it's just like the expectations for a rookie for me. Man, we've seen so many. Oh, we're so excited about this guy. And then they come in. It's like, it's going to take some time. Like he has the little stuff down. And in the season, he got better at the thing that's most important, the scoring.
It's a fair point.
Like I very much appreciate that. While Farabee, best numbers of his career.
Yeah,
And
career highs in pretty much every single category.
Best numbers of his career. And I come away disappointed in the season he has. Now, part of it is I need him to be one of the leaders of this team. I need him to be in the Konecny conversation. Bro, you're the best you're the only left wing we have, first of all.
Yeah.
So you need to be on the first line and producing 25 plus goals because ain't got no one else.
It's a fair point.
And listen, man, what was he drafted? 14th? I realize that's not second, but it's top half of the draft.
True.
I need a little more out of you. We saw it for some time, and for some time it was like, yo, it's finally happening. That guy, the guy Charlie told me about when they drafted him, he's here. And then maybe it's just the timing and it's bad luck that his slump happened when it happened. But we put more weight on those games.
No, it's true. And I closed out because my justification for the B- was I think first half Joel Farabee was an unqualified A grade. Second half post All-Star break Joel Farabee, a D might be generous. So I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to give him a B-. But the last sentence I have in my review is, well, I'll do the last two. Why did Farabee falter when the games tightened up and the stakes were higher? It's a critique that will dog him until he proves he can rise to meet the challenge of late season meaningful NHL hockey. It just will. That's fair. I know he was a rookie in 2019, 2020, so he got some time there, but it was a weird year. Season gets paused, the bubble's the bubble, whatever. That wasn't even real hockey. This was his first time to show that he could step up when the games get meaningful, and he did it. Now, I don't think that means he can't. It just means that he didn't. And it means that now, next season, if the Flyers are in a playoff race or 2 seasons down the line or whatever, as long as he stays on the team, there will be questions. There will be questions as to whether his game can translate to when the games get harder. I think he can do it, but it's going to be a question. And it's only going to be a question because he did not come through this time when the games were right there. He could have done better. He very well could have. I don't think he was injured. He's playing in the World Championship, so he can't say I was banged up. He just didn't get it done. And that's on him. I really like Joel Farabee, but that's on him.
No, and listen, if they trade him in a hockey trade and make the team better, especially at a position of need, so be it. I am in no way married to Joel Farabee. But I do think he has a lot in him, and he could be a part of this thing.
Yeah, I do too.
I want it to happen.
Yeah.
Man, come on, dude. Come on. I was really rooting for you here. We get to the C's now. We start with Sean Couturier.
C's get degrees.
The C is for captain. And,
hey-o.
man, the way it's such an insane start for him. The first 2 months of the season, he was fucking back. It was, he's not going to win the Selke, but he's going to get some votes.
I wrote an article at the end of December saying he should be in the Selke conversation.
Yeah, he's going to get some votes.
I think it actually drove some people to be like, oh, man, Couturier is having a good year, national people. Because I think, the next ESPN Awards Watch article in mid-January was like people in the mix, Sean Couturier. And I'm like, hey, people are paying attention to what I'm selling. And then that's right when his game completely collapsed.
The blink of an eye, he was the guy we were like, oh, this is worst case, him coming back from the back injury. He's a shell of himself, but he's playing. We saw both the best and worst case scenario play out. And once again, if it happens in reverse order, Sean Couturier is a B+ right now. Oh, fuck, he figured it out in the second half and he's fine, he's back. But since it happened in the order it happened, yeah, man, there's huge questions until, when he starts out, say he starts out next year strong, that doesn't matter. We're like, well, what happens at game 50? Yeah. What happens at game 64?
It's very, very fair.
That won't even matter when he starts out strong next year.
It'll be good if he starts out strong because then you know that, it's not just gone.
Yes. But it is, the question about him, can he play the full grind?
Yeah.
The answer right now is no. Doesn't look like it. We'll see. I'm not saying he can't, but Bobby Brink getting a C. I might want to go a C+, but okay. I get it. C, this C is the ultimate average.
Yeah.
He started out, was impressive, had the little lull, gets sent down to the minors, tears it up in the AHL for a couple weeks, comes back up, scored a couple big goals, but overall was never the noticeable guy he was the first month or two of the season. And, dude, he knocked down the door. Like, he had to make the team based on what he did in camp.
Yeah.
And then the way he started the season, like, think about what we're saying. Like, yo, they love Tyson Forster so much. He goes first 15 games without scoring. Brink's in the, like, top of the league in terms of rookie goal scoring in the first couple of months. Yeah. And then it kind of dried up.
But there is an element, too. And I've made that case in the past, when especially right after the Couturier scratch, that there are some perceived double standards in terms of the way John Tortorella treats players, and I noted Forster Brink. But it's fair to note, because we're looking at this right now for people watching on the live video stream, his play driving percentile rank among NHL forwards is in the 16th percentile. That is not very good. Whereas Tyson Forster's percentile rank in that same category, 81st percentile. One guy is a really, really good two-way player already. One guy is not just not that great, he's like actively a drag. And he didn't score enough as a rookie to make up for the fact that he's actively a drag in terms of defense. I think what's going to happen over the next couple of years, or however long, I guess, John Tortorella is the head coach of the Flyers, he's going to get some Frost treatment. And it'll be very interesting to see how he deals with it.
I was going to make the Frost comparison because remember, like early on in the season, maybe it was, I don't know, first couple of months probably, talking about Morgan Frost. And it's like, it looks like he's doing a lot of the little things you want from him better. Like you said, he's improved as a play driver, improved at least somewhat defensive. Like, he's not a liability out there.
Exactly.
He's doing the little things better. And Torts is just like, yeah, it's all well and good, though. Dog's got to score. Like,
yeah.
He's fine, maybe more so than we would think with a one-dimensional offensive player. But that dude better be real good at that one dimension.
Yeah.
He can't be what we thought Morgan Frost. Like, oh, cool, yeah, he's a one-dimensional offensive player, and he's going to have 33 points. Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Like, that's not helping you. He's going to be -8, you know? And Brink just has to get to that point or be good enough in a specialized area, like running the power play.
That'd be cool.
That you can put him on your third line, give him a good checking center, and it's maybe his raw totals aren't great, but look at the power play numbers he has, and we have a third line that can give us a little something sometimes, win some matchups. Like, that's what I think he's going to be.
I think next year is going to be big for him because my expectation is that Cam Atkinson will not be here, which in theory should open up a full-time spot for Brink. I'm not saying that John Tortorella won't scratch him sometimes because, hey, it's John Tortorella. He scratched the fucking captain. He scratches everybody. But
scratched himself at the end of last season.
But it should be easier. That's true. I didn't even think of that. It should be easier for Brink to play in almost every game, assuming that they do move on from Cam Atkinson, which it seems like the winds are blowing in that direction.
That should be like the treatment Brink got. While I didn't love it because I'm selfish. I want to watch Bobby Brink play. I got to watch these games. Give me the guy I want to see, not Cam Atkinson. And not like A-tier prospect. Like, if he does this to Michkov, I'm going to be like, what the fuck are you doing,
Yeah,
guy?
exactly.
But, like, to do this to Brink, all right, it's his rookie year. He hasn't earned shit yet. He made the team out of camp. Good for him. He looked good. Then he didn't. He's going to get treated this way. Next year, though, let's give him 82 games, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Like,
or at least 80.
Yeah. 77. You know? Let's just see how it goes, because what the hell else is the point of this? Before we move on, let me tell you about FOCO. FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. You know I'm a big team gear guy. I'm always got something on, and a lot of it comes directly from FOCO, because whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, even overalls, there's something for fans for almost every occasion. If you're in the market for some accessories, toys, or collectibles for your man cave, she shed, or podcast set, you've got to use FOCO for your team gear needs there as well. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of this show. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY10. That's PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO today. Let's try to get through these last few here. We go to the C-minuses. Laughton and Cates. I will agree with you on Noah Cates. I think we all know what happened to him this season. It doesn't even need that much explanation.
He called it an identity crisis.
Yeah.
I expect Noah Cates to be better next year. However, I also think that Noah Cates now is not going to delude himself into thinking that he can be a 50, 60-point guy. I think this season makes it clear that his ceiling is lower than maybe we hoped, which is disappointing because this time last year I was like, oh, Noah Cates might be the Flyers version of Anthony Cirelli. Now I'm like, yeah, Noah Cates could be a nice 30-point guy who kills it by 5-on-5 metrics and is a great bottom sixer.
Listen, he had a 38-point season prior.
Yeah.
That's a good total for a guy. If that's what he is, cool. This year, 18 points. Now he plays 59 games. He has the injuries. Things just go wrong for him. I do expect him to be better next year. That's the kind of player he is, the way he looked at the end of the season.
Yeah, he was one of the few guys who got better at the end of the year.
I think this might have just been one of them shit years. We know development isn't linear. I expect him, but on the clock now.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Fair point.
Let's see it. But I have nothing against Noah. I'm not fuck this guy, get him out of here.
Yeah.
No, I think he's going to be a good player. But all right, let's see it.
Yeah. Fair.
Scott Laughton C-, I think might be a little unfair. I know.
Reasonable. He was a very tough one for me to grade.
And I'm not saying he deserves an A. Let's not, But the end of the year, he put up exactly what you think he's going to put up.
In about 2.5 fewer minutes per game.
Yeah.
He was in a lesser role. I struggle with this one because, you're absolutely right. The raw numbers are there. He was real good shorthanded with TK. He has his role, and he obviously plays a strong role in the locker room. It's basically the main reason why they didn't trade him. And this is shocking to me because for pretty much his entire career, Scott Laughton has been not a great, but a good 5-on-5 player. He was in the first percentile among all NHL forwards in terms of expected goal differential impact. That is so unlike him, but it's so weird. He ranked there were 401 forwards in the NHL this year that played at least 400 minutes at even strength. Scott Laughton, in terms of impact on his team's expected goal differential, ranked 395th. If he's going to be the glue guy who does all the little things, he has to do all the little things.
That's fair.
And he was actively making the team worse for long stretches. I will. The reason why I certainly kept him out of D territory was there was a stretch from basically from the All-Star break until probably mid-March where he played like a top 6 center, and it was the perfect time because Sean Couturier was in the process of falling off an absolute cliff, and Laughton picked up the slack. I give him all the credit in the world for that. Laughton was part of the downturn in the end that put them on the 8-game losing streak, but there was a 5-6 week period where Laughton was essential for this team staying above water. Give him all the credit in the world for that. I just I can't give a player that was that bad. And I'm obviously someone who believes in advanced stats. I can't give a player who was that bad by advanced stats this year anything above a C-. I just can't do it.
I don't not believe in them. They exist. But I absolutely value it. I don't know. He just had such a weird year. Yeah, it's almost hard to evaluate him where it's C-. It's not a D, but and I don't know what I would grade. So
it was a tough year because yes, the scoring numbers ultimately were there, but it was such a weird year. I put this in the story for the first 43 games of the season. Over those first 43 games, Laughton had 3 goals. He's not one of the guys who drives the bus offensively. He's got to do more than that.
Yes.
For the first half of the year, he had 3 goals. That's horrible.
We all said about Scott Laughton, listen, the 18 he had the previous year, that's not who he is. So if you're counting on that, you're going to be disappointed. But 3 isn't enough.
No, it's not enough.
And at the end, we talked all year about how he ain't scoring, and he ends up with 13. I expect 13 to 15 goals from Scott Laughton.
Yeah.
That's a good total. That's a good season.
It was just a weird year because he starts out real slow offensively. Then the 5-on-5 play falls off a cliff. Then he has. He told me this. He basically said he had to go through a mental reset during the All-Star break. That just get out of your own head, stop being so hard on yourself, go out and play hockey. And for 5 weeks, that worked. He scores 10 goals in 30 games. He becomes a top 6 forward because Couturier is struggling. He falls down the lineup. Then, unfortunately, he goes scoreless in his final 9. Love Scott Laughton as a player, really like him as a person, but you need more from one of your leaders at that key point of the season. You just do.
To the other 31 general managers out there, we give him an A. That's all. We have 1D, Cam Atkinson. I don't even.
Oh boy.
What can you say about Cam Atkinson? I almost don't even want to like. All right, bro. See ya. Like I don't even want to like insult him by giving him a grade because he knows like it was a shit year and he sucked and maybe he's cooked or maybe he just needs a change of scenery and this ain't right for him anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's like, whew. He didn't score a point for the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, so he has a 27-game goalless drought. This was in like December, January. Then he gets scratched. He finally breaks the goalless drought. He has like about a 3-week period where he's like coming back. You're like, hey, Cam Atkinson looks pretty good again. And then he finishes the season on a 23-game pointless drought. Like he's in there for one reason, and it's to score. And I know that especially in the back half of those games, he wasn't getting much in the way of minutes. His role was decreased, but like. You couldn't luck into a secondary assist at some point, dude.
You didn't like dump a puck in and someone just like backed it off the goalie's skate or something like
yikes.
It's Cam Atkinson. What do you want to say? And the final guy you graded, and I think this is the most egregious grade you gave. You gave Nick Delorier a D-. What the fuck did you expect from Nick Delorier?
I expected him not to lose the faith of the one coach who probably would like go out of his way to play him.
I don't know if he lost the faith. I mean, he started the season well.
He did.
Remember when we were talking about
a real good first month.
Remember when we were talking about like this is kind of weird how well he's playing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Nick Delorier got in 11 fights.
He did.
That was tied for the league lead with Andreas Englund and Liam O'Brien.
Can we pause this for a second? Because I spent way more time than you would think trying to figure that out. Where do you go to figure out like most fighting majors?
Hockeyfights.com.
Hockeyfights.com has it? Okay.
11 fights tied with 2 other guys for the league lead. And on hockeyfights.com, the highest rated fight of the season, Rempe versus Delorier.
That was a great one.
That's all I want out of Delorier.
Yeah.
He did exactly. He's my lone A.
He
did exactly what I want him to do.
I guess my thing with Delorier,
unassisted goal.
And look, maybe I'm being overly critical because I don't think the enforcer role is as important as fans do. Like, I'm not saying toughness isn't important. Like, Nick Seeler, very valuable. Like, and he fights sometimes, and he's a tough as nails dude. I just don't think, like, if I'm going to have an enforcer, I want the enforcer also to do something. For the first month of the year, he did that. He was pretty good. Then it just kind of went by the wayside to the point where John Tortorella, who loves Nick Delorier, couldn't even justify having him in the lineup most nights. Like, that to me, I know I am biased against enforcers, so I have to note that when I'm evaluating their play. But when John Tortorella, who very much is not biased against enforcers, agrees with me, I'm pretty sure I'm right that he was playing real bad.
Yeah, like he wasn't good. I just I don't expect him to.
Fair.
It's why when they signed him to that contract, I was like, what are we doing? What is it we're looking to do here? You know, but when it comes, you know why he didn't play at the end of the season? Because they were playing meaningful games. And you know who they don't need? The fighter. I realize, like we have Garnett Hathaway. If he needs to fight, he will. Yeah. And that kind of, there's only 2 other heavyweights in the league. So like, who gives a shit if you don't have one? But when I look at Nick Delorier, I'm like, he did exactly what I expect him to do. So I can't possibly give him a D-.
Yeah. It's fair. And you could certainly make the case that they picked their spots with him in the second half where, like, hey, if they're playing the Rangers and Rempe's in the lineup, we got to have Delorier in there so that Rempe doesn't, like, try to, like, rip Joel Farabee's head off. Like, that's fair. And there is, I'm sure, a degree of value in having that guy as your extra that you can put in if you're playing a team where you're afraid that they have a guy who's just going to beat up on your young players. That's fair. And in that role, yeah, he was successful. I just need him to do something in terms of the other hockeying. And aside from the first month of the year, he really didn't.
Charlie, he scored an unassisted goal.
He did. You're right. That was wild. The Sean Couturier did not get an assist on that. Wild.
Sean Couturier should have got 2 assists on that. All right. That's pretty much it. I still have to, I got to tell you before we get out of here, you know, it's game time for us to go home, but it's It's Game Time all the time with the Game Time app, because it's never too late to get tickets with Game Time, because they are the place for last-minute ticket deals. You get the killer last-minute deals, the all-in prices, view from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time just takes all the guesswork out of every ticketed event you're going to go to. And it's summer, man. We got baseball in town. We have every summer concert. Whatever you're doing, do it with Game Time. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the flash deals. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So snag the tickets without the stress of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so will we be back tomorrow with the defenseman and goalie?
We sure will. I will be publishing that tomorrow morning on allphly.com, also for Diehards. And then we'll be breaking it down on this show at 1 p.m. here on our YouTube channel and also wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
So we'll see you tomorrow at 1. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, do all the subscription stuff. And thank you very much to our presenting sponsor, Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Until tomorrow, folks, my name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Go Sixers.
We all silly like the mayor.